Hi, so I am with Robyn and Peter from 4everbound Books.
Hi.
Hey, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about, I think your product is so great, and we'll talk a little bit about what it is you do, but how did you, well, maybe let me show that first. So
Okay.
I made one of your beautiful books for my daughter with her actual original artwork in it, so we can touch it and see it, and we'll talk about how that came to be in a minute. But first, how did 4everbound come to be?
Long story short is that Robyn was on the PTA board and I was in at the time working in a different industry, and I was approached by somebody to work with some equipment. And I thought, this is kind of a bookbinding thing. It's really not for me, but to Robyn, I said, I think I could buy you some of this equipment and you could do a fundraiser for your school. Because I know moms save all this stuff, and why don't you have them bring it in and you can kind of bind it for them and raise some money for the school. And then right immediately we both thought, oh, no, wait a minute, that's kind of like a really good idea. Maybe we should develop that idea more into a better product. And so that's really what we did.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it is a great idea. And the moms that I've talked to, I actually heard about you from a client of mine who's a mom of 4, and her kids are prolific artists, as so many young kids are. And she loved that your books, that you bind the original artwork. It's not just a scanned copy, which, in my experience as an organizer, when parents want to, even when they scan and put the stuff into, a digital book, they still want to keep the originals because they're not going to let those go. And this way you preserve the originals, but it's in a format where you can enjoy them.
I agree. I believe that it solves a couple of issues, one of which is that they have a hard time letting go of the original. But even for the ones who are okay with that, scanning something doesn't solve the issue of course, dimension and texture, right? We want to touch it and have that emotional connection to it. But also, even practically, not everything that children make are just flat one-dimensional things. They make cards, things that open,
Yep,
that move. Are you really going to take pictures of an essay that they got an A on, or all of the ouch reports that they got in preschool? I did a book once where it was all of the daily diaper change reports. Now,
that's so cute.
that was a lot. I mean, I was like, wow, she's really, she wants to save all these diaper chips, but that's important to people. It matters to them. So you're not going to send certain things to have a photograph taken of. So I do think it's a suitable solution for people, but it doesn't answer, I think, all the needs that people have, which is, well, but what about this kind of piece? And what about this? And what about the original?
I agree. And there's something, that tactile quality you mentioned, and something about like just being able to touch what your child's hands touched. And that brings back some memories, sweet memories of parenting that a digital representation just doesn't do the same way.
Plus it gets reduced, right? So if you have an 11
right.
piece that we're able to fold into the book and
right.
But
I'll show that. So let's find one, because I have all of these that are, some of them are, tactile and with stickers, and this is a big one that folds out. So I can get the whole piece in here, and it had some like glitter on it, and I can feel the glitter.
Yeah, and so that would have gotten reduced down to 8 by 10 basically. Well, I mean, here or there. So everything is reduced.
And well, it just makes everything very same. Because the other thing that you do is that you take some of the smaller pieces and tack those in, like put multiple small pieces on one page together, which is fun.
How long ago was that book? I feel like I remember it.
Last year or the year before. She's only 21, so I just finally got it done for her, all her years. But next, well, so let me show you what that one started out as. And this was my like mom solution for storing all the stuff, which I thought was great at the time, which for a little while it was one of these pre-made scrapbooks. but you can see like, this is actually really heavy. I think it's like 10 pounds and it's, you know, kind of unwieldy, and I had to stick things in because they're too big and those are going to fall out. So you can't, it's a storage solution, but it doesn't actually, you can't actually look at this.
Right.
So then why don't you tell me how does this become the nice bound book? What
Sure.
happens when I send that to you to get
Sure.
it from that to this?
Well, one of the things I like about those is that at least everything's organized. Usually it's in some sort of sequential order, right? That helps people.
Mostly.
Mostly, yes. So what we do with that is we're going to pull, in that particular case, we would pull out all of those pieces, and then we're going to, so our book is for 8.5 by 11 paper.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing that happens is all of that needs to get prepped, and that's my department. And then when it's all prepped and ready, and I'll explain that, then it goes to Peter, and then he finishes it, and that's his department. So I'm front of the house, he's back of the house, is I think what I like to call that. But so we're gonna take all those pieces out. If it's a little bit larger than 8.5 by 11, most of the times we're going to trim it. There's usually enough negative space where if we trimmed it off, it doesn't compromise the piece.
Mm-hmm.
However, if it is something where maybe they wrote their name for the very first time, and it's super cute and it's right on the edge, we're not going to cut that off. That's like one of the things that I want to always assure people is that anything we cut off, if it's cut off, is not important, you know.
Okay.
And if it is important, then we're not going to trim, we're going to fold. And so we use a combination of those techniques. If I can trim it, then I will trim it, because less folds is better for the book.
Mm-hmm.
But if I need to fold it in order to preserve the entire piece the way that it is, and obviously an 11 by 17 piece has to get folded, because I can't trim 11 by 17 down to 8.5 by 11.
Right.
So basically it's a combination of trimming and folding. The odd shaped pieces, like smaller pieces, we will mount onto, I like to use the blank backs of a lot of the pieces, because a lot of things are only one-sided.
Yeah.
And
smart.
so if there's an odd shaped piece, a duck, a pumpkin, a whatever, a skateboard picture, I don't know, that'll go on the back of something if I can. And if I don't have something to put it on the back of, then I'll just mount it onto a fresh piece of paper. Or sometimes I can, if it's almost the size of a page or half of a page, I can even bind it the way that it is, even though it's odd shaped. I have a little trick that I do where I can kind of lock it into the binding edge so that when the book is bound, so maybe I'll bind a penguin on its wing.
Oh, yeah, so that it gets just stuck into that.
The whole wing is like stuck in the binding edge, and the rest of him is.
Oh, that's so fun. Yeah, so you might get some funny shaped pages that are fun to look at.
Yeah, I think it's important just to note that every item, every single piece of paper is handled individually.
Wow.
It is stacked together.
It's truly custom.
Every piece is looked at. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it's all done, and that's important. Yes, it's all done by hand. We don't just stack it all up and then go and trim it all. It's each one is, so we trim it this way, we turn it, we trim it the other way, then we flip it over, and then we go to the next one. And so we just, one of the biggest questions we get is like, do you put it in order for us? And no, we can't, because it would be so time consuming and frankly maddening to have to look at all the dates.
And you don't know, you wouldn't necessarily know. So when people send it, like when I sent my kit, you said, like first step in doing a 4everbound book is to order the kit, decide how many pages, because you have different size books, decide what size you want, which I think just go for the biggest. So, because it's going to be hard to cut it. I mean, if it's like kids' mementos, that's pretty hard to cut down, but, or you can go, you might need multiple books. If you really have a lot, you might separate it by like, you know, preschool, elementary, middle, something like that. Anyway, yeah. And then I just, you say to stack them in the order that you want. So make sure that it's presented to you in the order that you want it in.
Yeah, that's correct. And then we're, and then sometimes we might have to move something occasionally if it's very, very stiff or whatever. It might work better in the back of the book, but 99.9% of the time, it's going to stay in the order that it is sent to us. And we can tell, first of all, there's a cover sheet that comes where you can write notes like, do not move anything. Okay, we won't move anything. Other people are like, do what you want. In which case, then we might move some stuff around because it helps balance things out and we can kind of spread things out. So that's always nice when we have a little bit more creative freedom. And then, oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought.
Well, can they write like, if you have to move something, can you call me? Or if something's not going to work, can you email me? And so you would get in touch with them.
Where my train of thought was. My train of thought was that we're human beings looking at very human material with a family on the other end of it, and we take that really seriously. So this is not some corporate computerized business where they're not paying attention and they're not looking. So we see things all the time that are like, oh, maybe they didn't mean to do it that way. We catch typos even, and you know, I say that with caution. We would like to not do that. We don't want to be responsible for somebody's typo, but there are times where we're like, was it really supposed to be spelled like this? And so we will go and we'll double check.
If we have a question or something, we always check with customers.
That's great. I mean, it's great to know because so many things are just all done by computer or by faceless. You know, you just order it online and you don't really know if there's a human on the other end, but we know
we don't want to come and say, well, that's what you said, so that's what you got.
We don't ever want to do that. Because that's the experience that most people get at any business that they interact with, which is, well, that's what you ordered, too bad. And of course, if it was completely different, if what you're saying is completely different than what you ordered, then okay, that's a different discussion. But otherwise, it's like, okay, we've corrected things that were not our mistake. I mean, just because we want the customer to be happy, or maybe they didn't understand.
Right.
And so they were like, you know, oh, I didn't realize. Sometimes somebody will order 3 or 4 books and they're the thick ones, but they didn't order the spine printing that goes on the side, which is okay. But I will take the time and say, are you sure? Because if you're starting a series of books and you don't put it on now, we can't put it on later, right?
No.
Add the built-in fireplace to the house.
I can put a label on that, but it's not the same as the nice spine printing.
And I just want to make sure that they know that. I'm not trying to push them into something. I just want to make sure they know. And sometimes they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. And other times you're like, no, I'm good. I didn't need it. That's great.
Okay.
I think the other thing, too, is, you know, you go online, you order a book or your books, and then we send you a kit with everything you need to package it properly so you know how to put it together, you know what your options are. You go online and you choose how you want your cover designed through all the choices. It just walks you through step by step on how to do that. But you're never really locked in to done until the book is actually done. So if you have changes, we have questions, and it's just, we really make sure that we deliver a finished product that we think you really expected.
I can say it exceeded my expectations for the finished product. And it really was. The process was easy. Deciding what was going to go in the book and what got, you know, left on the cutting room floor was not, that was the harder part but my goal was to have a really good representation of all of our family favorite things that she'd done, and you don't need every scribble, but sometimes the temptation is to put every scribble in, but just to have the best of the best, and something that my husband and I could enjoy and our daughter would enjoy, and not be, you know, like, Mom, why did you save that?
Well, and that is a really important point that you bring up, because it's one thing when our kids are 6 and they think it's fun to look at it, but when they're adults, you don't want to just hand them a box of their things or even the binder behind you.
Right.
It's lovely that it's been saved, but if we hand that to this generation of kids coming up now, they're going to throw it out probably. And
it's really, like, I tell parents too, it's mostly your memories of your time with your young children. They were young. They don't remember a lot of it. They like sort of knowing that it was special to you, and that helps your relationship. But I had a client who had, I mean, she had saved everything her children ever touched, and it took up an entire I think it was 12 bins, and on 3 of those garage storage shelves. Like, that's not something any kid wants to inherit. So
No.
it's
No,
just,
it's true. So it's also doing them a favor as well, as far as, but we made, we made books for when our son graduated high school.
yeah.
He got his books, and then our daughter, that one took, our oldest daughter, we made a book for her 30th birthday.
Oh,
And the reason
cute.
that one took so long is because there's a lot of reasons why. But anyway, but she loved it, and it had all kinds of, it had camp letters in there, all the letters. It
Yep.
had letters that, that she had written to her grandfather who had passed away. So she had those in there, and letters that he had written to her, artwork that she had done. So it was a whole variety, a traffic ticket. So like,
That's great. That's
I
special.
like that.
Well, yeah, that's hilarious.
I
So
love, I think one of the things that I love reading in people's books is when they send me the notes that came home from the teacher about what their kid did wrong that day. Like, this is
yeah,
what he did, or the notes that Billy writes, dear Timmy, I'm sorry I punched you in the face and, called you a poo-poo head. Like, I love that moms save that stuff, because
oh
I
yeah,
think
we have the one of my daughter I had to write to a friend's mom about being sorry she cut her friend's hair. Like, took the scissors like that.
Yeah.
It's really funny. So that gets into, like, we've talked about children's artwork, but then you start mentioning letters and traffic tickets and fun stuff like that. So what else do you recommend other than children's schoolwork and artwork and, like, kids mementos? What else do you recommend having bound into a forever bound book?
Basically anything that is paper memorabilia, or paper-ish memorabilia that somebody has saved. So we do, so that would be letters, obviously. So we've done summer camp letters, we do love letters, deployment letters, missionary letters. When the Mormon community, when they go on mission, they're gone for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
They are prolific letter writers, and so we do a lot of those. We have, and then I can talk about all the war letters. So war letters are, for me, an enormous passion, because we're at a generation now where we just talked about kids throwing away. So, my grandparents and my parents have letters, and we're going to inherit those. And we're not going to throw them out necessarily, but the generations coming up, maybe they are, because they don't know what to do with it. So I feel really, really passionate about getting those letters out of boxes, in basements, attics, and closets, and getting them preserved in a book, because somebody is probably not going to throw out a nicely bound book of vintage war letters or
Right.
vintage of any kind. But they probably will eventually lose, misplace, or throw away a box of old letters. And that breaks my heart.
Yeah.
So I'm passionate about that.
Yeah.
It's history.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, it's family history. It's men that go overseas with leaving their girlfriend behind. Through that process, they get married. Through that process, they have children. Through that process, he comes home. I mean, it's just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful things, and it's in their handwriting, and it's their words.
That's amazing. And as an organizer, when I work with people on this kind of thing, it's really important to them to take this family history, whatever it is, and out of the boxes, and curate it for their heirs, the next generation, so that they know why it's important. There are things like, yeah, if you leave it in a box, this generation doesn't know. They're like, what is this? This is a box of I don't know what. If you put it into a book, like you said, it's more purposeful, it's manageable. They can flip through this and instantly know what this is about, why this is important to their family. And like, I had a client who had kept some mementos in files, and it wasn't easily apparent why this particular file, like, one was a crossword puzzle that was it was just a Xerox of a crossword puzzle. But it turned out that that day's puzzle was on her mother's birthday the year after she died, and it contained her mother's name in it just randomly. It was like a really amazing story. And so I encouraged her to write that story on there. So if you, take the object, write the story, bind it in a book, then you're passing on meaningful information that your heirs can understand why this is important to the family history and maybe to history in general. So.
Yeah, a real high probability that they will read it. If it's
Exactly.
they'll sit down and read it. Otherwise, you might as well just put it under a heavy rock because they're never going to go move it.
Right. And also, like, get it out of those boxes in the attic so you can enjoy it. Why are you storing it? Why are you saving it? If it's important, it should be important enough to be in your home in a way that you can interact with it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm super passionate about that. So we can either
Great.
bind the original letters, or we can, and this is what we do more often than not is, so if you have one grandfather who went to war, but there's 7 siblings and cousins and grandchildren in the family that would like their own copy of that book to pass down within their generation. So that's why the scanning is very popular.
Okay. So you do some scanned, you have the option to scan.
So
okay.
we will have customers who they just want the one copy of their originals. That's all they want. That's great. We have other customers where they want the originals and they want a scanned copy. They might only want it scanned because they want a backup of it, but typically they're scanning it because they want multiple copies made. And they also don't have to buy all of those copies for everybody in the family. They can buy theirs. They could pay for the scanning and then buy their book and then tell all their relatives, hey, if you want your own, they'll make it for you. And so, because we keep everything on file. So
so they can just share your link and say, hey, get in touch. Here's the book. They'll know.
Me and tell them we've done that. We have people they will order 1 or 2, then the rest of the family sees it. And then all of a sudden they're calling me and they're like, yeah, well, we need to get 5 more. And so that's why we say it.
That's great.
We can print it in color, which is fabulous because the color looks almost identical to the original.
Oh, wow.
But also grayscale. If they used very plain paper and wrote with black ink, then, a grayscale print is more economical and looks just as good. So letters, and then the other types of books that we do, like, for example, I'm just preparing right now. We'll be binding this one later today.
Yay.
This is a teacher who's retiring. And so one of the moms had all the kids write cards and notes.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute.
Yeah. And so it's not bound yet. So that's why I'm holding it awkward. So it's all prepared and ready to go. So it'll get bound on this edge. And, so when we talk about preparing things, I had to go through each one of these things and check them and, mount cards. It's hard to see because I don't want to drop this stack.
No, it's great though. Yeah, that's what a special teacher gift.
Yep. And so she's retiring. This is a rush order. But just to show you, because remember I said paper or paper-ish. So sometimes we get things that are on canvas board, know.
Mm-hmm.
So I can actually cut that canvas, mounted. I can cut that canvas off the board itself. And so this is canvas.
Oh.
And we're going to find the book.
Could you do something that's like fabric too?
Yeah, I've done fabric. We've done fabric.
We did a whole book of a gentleman who, I don't know, hundreds of bicycle races, and the bibs.
Oh, good idea. I know clients who keep, their marathon, whatever that's called. Not a runner, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a great idea.
Either. When we got the email from somebody who said, can you bind racing bibs? So I went to Google, what is a racing bib? And then it's kind of like it's a fabric. It's a fabric-y type of paper. It's like,
I think it's that papery fabric, like they do the pins what they pin on you for other races and things. Yeah. Okay. Racing bibs.
Fabric is
what fun. Yeah.
So We can bind fabric. I'll cut things. People have sent me like school book bags that their kid like, and I'm not binding a whole book bag, but I can cut out the front. They've had tote bags where I've cut the front of the tote bag and just bound that
Or for
square.
baby books, like if they have that little lock of baby hair, that could go on a page, right? Or that doesn't have to be left out.
We did that. That was a Christmas order. A woman sent us the baby books for her 5 children.
Mhm.
So, a lot of people have those baby books, but again, they're kind of thick and unwieldy. And
Yeah.
we put it apart and bound that all into a book and added other
Beautiful.
things too. Yeah.
Fun.
So basically anything.
That's
Greeting
great.
cards you can do as well. The only challenge with the greeting cards is like with the baby cards and the wedding cards tend to have a lot of 3-dimensional embellishments on them, which then they don't lay very flat.
Makes the book really thick, right? Or not lay.
Really wonky. And but we can scan those. Anyway, so we
Great.
have options for people. Yeah.
Well, thank you. This is so helpful. Do you have anything like a last kind of maybe something about your most special, most memorable
We
books
do.
that you've done?
But we talked about front of the house. I want to let Peter explain his binding process or what.
Oh yeah.
Forgot that part. I took over.
Oh, yeah, just like every piece of paper's gone through, one at a time. The covers are made from scratch. So I buy big rolls of paper and everything's cut and trimmed and the boards are made and the whole book is made in our shop to fit that and brought over to print to your specifications. And then it took a while to find out the right type of binding process because we're dealing with some difficult things.
Right. To make them, because it's very secure. It's not like
That's right.
This is not ever gonna come apart.
Correct. And so with all different kinds of materials as well. So it took a while, but it's a proprietary process that we developed. But anyway, just the cover is handmade as well. So you're getting a truly handmade product from start to finish.
You can definitely tell. I mean, it really is beautiful. It's definitely a family heirloom.
Yeah. Yep. So he does all the foiling. He makes all the covers. He does all the foil printing. He binds everything, and then it goes back to me. We package it up and ship it out. So from start to finish, it's you order online. You get your kit in the mail. The kit has a prepaid label in it, so you can literally put your stuff in the box, slap the label on, and just send it right back. The label is good for 1 year. So one of the biggest questions people have is like, well, how long do I have? You have forever. I get orders from 3 years ago. They ordered 3 years ago and they're just now finally sending me their papers. We do not penalize people for that. But the label is only good for 1 year.
Okay.
But in any case, so then we get their papers, we prep it all, bind it all, package it up, ship it back. As Peter likes to say, we are just
giving something back that they already love.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Lovely.
Yeah. So it's easy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's easy as far as process goes. And then there's the emotional.
It's straightforward. Yeah.
Yep.
And definitely, I mean, I have helped people do this kind of thing. I think if people are looking for help with that, they may not realize that professional organizers can help them either in person or virtually. So that's something that we can do to partner with people to make this happen.
Well, the fact that you do this virtually helps because I would be more than happy to say, hey, if you're one of those moms that has a really hard time deciding, Kate can help you. Help you over Zoom because sometimes even having somebody standing there with you, and which is, we've also done and we're hoping to grow, but we've also done parties where 5 or 6 moms get together.
That's a great idea because then often they know each other's children, so they can say, "Hey, I remember that. That was really great," and help.
They have a fun time doing it. They spend a few hours. They sort through a lot of stuff.
Great idea.
Out a lot of stuff that they were like, and it's funny. They're like, "Why did I save this?"
I know you have the time you don't even remember what it was.
But they do. They have a really good time sharing with each other, like exactly what you said. But there's that aspect of having another person there with you It makes the time go by a lot faster, and then you feel like you really accomplished something. And then you have an empty bin to take home and go put more stuff of something else in it.
That's right.
But
Right.
so I do think that there's something to be said for, you know, if you have a hard time organizing or letting go, reaching out to a professional that can virtually, you know, sit with you and help you do it, I think is a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, and just the same as if you, you know, I think we mentioned before, like, well, you could just put this in a binder, but we saw what my binder looks like. There's benefit to reaching out to someone who does this professionally, like you are, you know, and putting it in a binder. It's not as accessible. Often it's in a sleeve. You have to take things out. It makes a big mess. It's not really an easy thing that you can look through. So there is, yeah, value in getting it done right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in terms of the organizing side too, Kate, is that we have most people that do it once do it more than once.
Yeah.
But they do it the first time, then they kind of get in the rhythm of I'm saving the papers for next year, and now I know really what I want to save and what I don't want to save.
Yeah.
Book, right?
Right. They've built their decision muscles so they can do it on their own.
That's right. So then they save their papers in a right spot as the year goes by, and then they're done and it's ready to ship off, basically.
Absolutely.
Oh,
So,
gosh. So this is when we were talking about before. So here's a binder that somebody just sent us.
mhm.
So they did an excellent job of saving all of their vintage war letters from World War II.
Wow.
And it's beautiful, but first of all, the only one person gets this. So
Yeah.
we solve that problem, right? Because you can have multiple copies made. But you have, like you just said, you have to reach inside each sleeve and pull out the letter in order to read it, as opposed
Yeah.
to.
And it's more like sterile somehow. It's organized. It's organized, but it's not really accessible.
No.
So those are two
So
different things.
I will be pulling all these letters out, and that's, you know, that's, we unfold them, we open them, unfold them. If they want the originals back, then I'll have to look at this order. If she wants these originals back, then I'm putting them all back in the sleeves again.
Wow.
Send it back the way that we got it. Yeah.
That's great, though. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I think you really have a special product, especially in this age where everything is so digital. This is a custom, one-of-a-kind thing that you do, that you make. So Forever Bound book is just, I think it's a lot more special for people when I tell them about it and they say, oh, it's the actual artwork. It's not a digital one. People get really excited about that. And they can connect with that much more than the idea of sending their stuff off to be scanned. And I get it when it's letters or something and, you know, you need to make multiples for people, but for a lot of people, the ability to have the originals presented in a beautiful format is really important to them.
Did you want me to answer the question from before about
if you have a special story that you want to tell, I'd be happy to hear it, but
I have a couple of interesting ones. I mean, well, first of all, obviously all the kindergarten books they're cute, and all the preschool and the artwork is cute. Last year we did 3 books for a woman who had lost her husband, and she had saved every love note, card, sticky note, and he was a very, very affectionate man, and he left her notes all the time. And so we made her 3 books. So that was, and it's kind of a gut punch while you're doing it. You're
like, oh, bittersweet, but
loved her so much. And that was a big loss for her. We did a book of all paper towels. So, yeah, every morning, her husband would he got up very, very early in the morning, and so she would leave him a note on a paper towel next to the coffee pot where the coffee was ready, and then he would write her back.
Oh, so it was correspondence on paper towels.
Paper towels and their
sweet.
Saved them all, and so it was all paper towels. I don't know if you remember that one.
I do.
Yeah. And so because it's paper, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Paper book. We've done books with just all sticky notes. People leave each other notes on sticky notes. And so
Yeah.
we that we've done there was a grandmother who she had prayer cards on index cards, and the family had saved all of these index cards, and so we made that, and so the family had multiple copies of grandma's prayer cards.
Could do that with recipe cards too.
We can, yeah, we can do, and we have done that with recipe cards. There's a woman who this was last year or the year before, her son disappeared at sea during COVID. He went on a year-long sailing trip during COVID, and because all of the ports were closed, they couldn't. I know they
That's
couldn't.
terrifying. Yeah,
it is, and he was somewhere in the Pacific. They lost track of him, and he was 21, 22 years old. And they found other people that were on the boat. It's a very bizarre story, but after she told me about it, I Googled it and I looked, and and I just felt terrible for her. But it was a book that she wanted made for his little brother.
Oh,
So that his little brother would have all of his things. So that was a very unique story. But we're privileged to be able to, for a brief period of time, be a part of people's family stories. To tear up a little bit.
yeah, yeah, and you're really helping. I think that 4everbound helps to deepen people's relationships with each other in that way.
I hope so.
Yeah.
One of our very first projects, we were brand new. We'd only been open a few months. Don't know how she found us. We did a book for her son's high school graduation. She had been in a very nasty divorce and had been completely estranged and alienated from her son, and hadn't spoken to her son or her son was not speaking to her for 5 years. For whatever reasons, not my place to speculate or judge, but she asked us to make this book. And then she wrote us back a couple months later, and she said, I went to my son's graduation. I gave him this book. He was so touched by it, and we've been talking.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's what a privilege.
Yep. I remember her name was Leslie, and she is in New York. So
Amazing.
Yeah.
So that's so great. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing those stories and for taking the time to talk to me. And I hope,
Thank you. We appreciate it a lot.